Dear students, let's talk about differentiation of embryonic layers. So, there are three embryonic layers: ectoderm, endoderm, and mesoderm. Ectoderm is outer embryonic layer, is shown in blue color here. Endoderm is shown in yellow, and all structures in pink shades are showing mesoderm. So, ectoderm or outer embryonic layer, it includes dermal ectoderm, it will form epidermis of skin, and neuroectoderm, which will form neural tube, and it will form nervous system. Endoderm is inner embryonic layer, and we'll talk about its development later. And also there is mesoderm. It includes paraxial mesoderm or medial mesoderm, intermediate mesoderm, and lateral mesoderm. Paraxial mesoderm, it's called somites. Intermediate, it's nephrotomes, and lateral mesoderm, it's splanchnotomes. And also there is undifferentiated mesoderm or embryonic connective tissue, which is called mesenchyme. It fills the spaces between all those structures. Here we can see embryo on the early stage of development. It's ectoderm, it's endoderm, it's notochord, it's neural tube. Here we can see somites, nephrotome, and splanchnotom parietal and visceral layer, and space between them, which is called coelom or coelomic cavity. And also there is a mesenchyme which fills the spaces between all those structures. Here we can see ectoderm, outer embryonic layer, it's endoderm, inner embryonic layer, and between them there is mesoderm, third embryonic layer. So ectoderm forms outer covering of the embryo. It covers embryo outside. Endoderm forms primary digestive tube inside the embryo. It's connected with yolk sac via vitelline duct. And between two layers, between ectoderm and endoderm, there is mesoderm. It fills this space. So it's primary intestine or primitive intestine, and it's closed on both ends. Both ends are blind. So how to eat? How this embryo will eat and how it will release waste products? Both ends are closed. So on this stage, ectoderm is involved in the formation of digestive system. Here we can see that ectoderm forms invagination on anterior side as well as on the posterior side, and it forms embryonic oral cavity which is called stomodome, and embryonic anus which is called proctodome. So stomodome and proctodome, there are two invaginations of the ectoderm. They have close contact with intestinal tube, with endodermal intestine. Later, ectoderm and endoderm, in the place of their attachment, will form oropharyngeal membrane, and here ectoderm and endoderm will form cloacal membrane. Here we can see cloacal membrane and oropharyngeal membrane. Later, oropharyngeal membrane will be broken, as well as cloacal membrane. And here we can see that intestinal tube is complete. We can see embryonic oral cavity, embryonic anus, and between them there is intestinal tube which develops from endoderm. So, which structures develop from ectoderm? Ectoderm will form epidermis of skin, outer covering, and also it will form epithelium of the anus and epithelium of the oral cavity. Its ectodermal structures. And endoderm will form epithelium of the pharynx, esophagus, stomach, and intestines. So digestive system, middle part of digestive system develops from endoderm. And all other structures mainly develop from mesoderm. Also, endoderm forms special invagination. It's called respiratory diverticulum or respiratory bud. It will form respiratory system. It will be larynx, trachea, bronchi, so all epithelia of respiratory system, they develop from endoderm. And also endoderm forms some germs of liver and pancreas. There are hepatic and pancreatic buds. they also arise in the endoderm, in the middle part of the endodermal intestinal tube. They will form liver and pancreas. And salivary glands, they develop from ectoderm of oral cavity. So salivary glands, they have ectodermal origin. So ectoderm has three parts. It's dermal ectoderm, neuroectoderm, it's embryonic ectoderm, and also there is extraembryonic ectoderm, which forms epithelium of the amnion and umbilical cord. Embryonic ectoderm includes dermal ectoderm and neuroectoderm. Dermal ectoderm forms epidermis of skin and also derivatives of epidermis of skin, such as sebaceous glands, sweat glands, and hair. Also, dermal ectoderm forms epithelium of the mucosa of oral cavity and anus and their derivatives. Also, parenchyma of salivary glands develops from dermal ectoderm. Enamel of teeth develops from ectoderm because teeth they develop in the embryonic oral cavity. And also lens, cornea, and conjunctive of eye they develop from ectoderm. Neuroectoderm forms nervous system. It includes neural tube and it develops into CNS, central nervous system. And also there is ganglionic plate which will form neuroglia of peripheral nervous system and medulla of adrenal glands. There are main structures which develop from ectoderm. Also we have endoderm. Endoderm also has embryonic and extraembryonic parts. Embryonic or intestinal endoderm forms epithelium of intestinal type. It's epithelial lining of stomach and intestines. Also parenchyma of the liver and pancreas, and also epithelium of the respiratory system. All those structures they develop from embryonic intestinal endoderm. And also we have extraembryonic or yolk endoderm. It's epithelium of the yolk sac, and it's extraembryonic part. It's extraembryonic organ. And third embryonic layer, it's mesoderm. Mesoderm fills the space between ectoderm and endoderm, and it has differentiated and undifferentiated part. Here we can see dense structures in dark pink shades. They show differentiated mesoderm. It includes paraxial, intermediate, and lateral mesoderm. And undifferentiated mesoderm, it's mesenchyme, which fills the spaces between all other structures. So differentiated mesoderm includes somites or paraxial mesoderm, nephrotome, and two layers of splanchnoderm. Here we can see paraxial or medial differentiated mesoderm, intermediate and lateral. Paraxial, it includes somites, intermediate nephrotome, and lateral, it's splanchnoderm. And undifferentiated mesoderm, it includes mesenchyme. And let's go to somites. Somite has three parts: dermatome, myotome, and sclerotome. Dermatome, dermis, it's skin. So it forms connective tissue of skin. Epidermis of skin, if you remember, it develops from dermal ectoderm. And dermatome of somite, it forms dermis, lower layer, deeper layer of skin. Myotome of somite forms skeletal muscles, those muscles which move our skeleton. And sclerotome forms skeletal tissues, bony and cartilaginous. Nephrotome or intermediate mesoderm. Nephros, it means kidneys, so it will form urinary system. It forms epithelium of the kidneys and urinary tract, and also it forms epithelium of the reproductive system. So urogenital system develops from nephrotome, this part of the mesoderm. And splanchnoderm left. It has two layers, as you already know. It includes somatopleura and splanchnoplura. Somatopleura is parietal layer, outer and inner layer is splanchnoplura or visceral layer. And between them there is a cavity which is called coelom, coelomic cavity. So what develops from splanchnoderm? Splanchnoderm gives rise to mesothelium. It's coelomic epithelium. It covers serous membranes. Tunica serosa is covered with mesothelium. And also adrenal cortex, cortex of adrenal glands, and myocardium and epicardium of the heart they develop from myoepicardial plate, which is part of splanchnotom. And undifferentiated mesoderm, mesenchyme left. So what will develop from mesenchyme? Mesenchyme forms tissues of inner environment, connective tissues, fibrous connective tissue, adipose tissue. They develop from mesenchyme. Almost all connective tissues, they develop from mesenchyme. Also, blood cells, formed elements of blood, they develop from mesenchymal cells. And also blood vessels, cells of blood vessels, they develop from mesenchyme. And smooth muscle tissue develop from mesenchyme. So mesenchyme gives rise to tissues of inner environments, blood cells, blood vessels, and smooth muscles. So students, as a result of late gastrulation, 3 embryonic layers develop and they form all organs, all systems of our body. So 3 embryonic layers are essential for embryonic development of human organism. Thank you for your attention.